you had a wonderful week and you're ready for another gadget report. So let's talk gadgets. This week I will be talking about Brisbane Airport. And recently, Australian Aviation has published an article about measures to reduce noise at Brisbane Airport and the costs that may be involved. This is always a very, very controversial topic because we all like to fly, we all like to have our holidays, we all like to have airports, but then there's always the other side of it, the noise, the pollution, the traffic, etc., etc. So today we will be talking about this. I will be talking about what the article says, and then I'll give it my personal input on this. So let's stick around and let's talk gadgets. Okay, so let's talk gadgets. And as I said, today we are talking about Brisbane Airport. Recently, Australian Aviation has published an article, this was in September the 2nd, about something regarding to the noise control at Brisbane Airport and the costs involved in that. Brisbane Airport claims that the curfews and the limitation of the number of flights per hour would cost the airport about $1 billion per year, and obviously they are not happy about it, as you can imagine, and a lot of talks have been done in regards to that. We all know that airports, there's always going to be a little bit of a divisive issue, and there's always going to be a controversial one, and everyone has their own opinion. I certainly have mine, and today we are going to discuss this, and I will give you my personal view as someone, first of all, loves aviation, as someone who actually lived next to a major airport, which is what we are talking about here, and I'll give you my intake about this. First of all, as I said, and according to the article, Brisbane Airport claims they will lose about $1 billion if there is imposed a limitation on the number of flights per hour. They propose a redirection of these flights, so they propose that the flights will be redirected over the bay, so they will actually use a less populated area to minimize these noise issues. Well, talking about noise issues, we all know that if you live near an airport, you will expect that you will have some amount of noise. Is expected. A curfew could be a solution. Sydney Airport has a curfew from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. That could be a solution, but obviously airlines won't be happy about it, airports won't be happy about it, and I think a curfew is included on this complaint from Brisbane Airport. But of course, we have to establish a compromise here. And we all know these are rather difficult issues because we need airports and we all want them, but obviously we don't want the pollution, the noise, the traffic associated with such a major piece of infrastructure. But we have to be honest. If we really want to live in today's world, there is a few things that we need to expect. But having said that, we need to also take in consideration the changes that have been happening in aviation throughout the years, and also the changes that have been occurring throughout the world in recent years. So, redirecting flights, I believe it's actually a great idea. Brisbane Airport is actually coming with a good idea. Redirecting the flights for less populated areas could be a compromise on this issue, and obviously could help minimize the noise for the highly populated areas. Another solution could be a curfew, like what happens at the moment at Sydney Airport. And I know, I live in Sydney, I know they have been trying to get rid of this curfew for ages, and it's not happening. The government is not budging, and obviously the population, the people that live around it, also don't want it to happen. So it is a little bit of a measurement of forces. And obviously, when you are a politician, what your electorate think, it's what it's gonna be happening, because obviously they need the votes. But that is another story. So this is important, that obviously we address this. And curfews, even though they're not very popular with airports, they are very popular with the population. Curfews are in fact a solution. Redirecting flights is another solution. I know, for example, Sydney Airport sometimes they use the runways that are directed into Botany Bay rather than coming over the city. So the east-west runway that uses, for example, the Sydenham, a suburb called Sydenham, where it was very, very close where I used to live in Walleye Creek. And the planes, there is actually, if you live in Sydney, you definitely know this intersection. There's an intersection in the suburb of Sydenham that you are actually stopped in the traffic lights, and you might as well see A380 just meters away from you, just landing. And the noise, it's incredible. And we must say that with the A380, the noise was reduced dramatically. But I remember being stopped in that intersection and seeing a magnificent Boeing 747 landing, the Queen of the Skies, and the roar was just incredible. I know I say this with a lot of excitement, because I am an aviation lover and I love the 747. But obviously, if you are not an aviation lover and if you couldn't care less about planes, you would be extremely upset because of the noise. And that's a given, and I do understand that. And we must say that changes have been made. And as I said, with the A380, there was a reduction in noise, a dramatic reduction in noise. I remember when the A380 started operating, that it was noticeable. It was noticeable, even though I really love the 747, and it will always be one of my favorite planes ever. I have to acknowledge that it was quite noisy once. And I remember as soon as one was taking, finished the taxiing, and they were put on the runway to the final takeoff. And once you hear those four engines, the roar of those four engines, it could be further away, you would still hear it, and it was massive. And I understand that. And obviously, if you live nearby, it's gonna be it's not gonna be pleasant, and I know that. Even for me, obviously, if it was at night, I wouldn't mind it if it was during the day, and I would be in my window watching it. But if it's in the middle of the night and you want to sleep, or you have children and you want your children to sleep, of course it's not going to be pleasant. So in terms of noise reduction, I think aviation has been improving, and after the A380, all the subsequent aircraft that were released by both manufacturers, either Boeing and Airbus, they have a massive improvement on noise, which is obviously something that the manufacturers have been listening to, because that's the bottom line. Let's face it. People complain about the plane noise. Airlines don't want to lose money, so they want planes that actually have or produce less noise. And of course, the manufacturers have to listen to their clients, that is the airlines, and they have to do something. And I think they did. The A380 is a proof of that, and all aircraft that came after that. We saw a massive reduction in noise. And if we compare, for example, the Concorde with what a 380 does now, it's unthinkable. However, we all know that the Concorde was a special aircraft, it was supersonic aircraft, and what the Concorde could achieve was something that none of the other ones have did. So it's something different. We are not comparing comparable aircraft here, and I must say this. But if we compare, for example, the 747s with the A380, we notice a massive reduction. I certainly did. I lived close to Sydney Airport for more than 10 years, and I actually lived close to Lisbon Airport. I was living on the flight path of Lisbon Airport for 30 years, and so I'm quite used to plane noise, and I know, and I remember the older aircraft, the noise that they used to produce, there was way more than what we have today. However, obviously, we still need to consider those people that live around the airports and the noise that the planes obviously still produce. So I think this proposal of redirecting the flights to less populated areas is definitely an option. A curfew, even though less popular, is definitely an option. But here is my 5 cents. And as I said, I just said it. I lived close to an airport all my life. This is the first time that I'm living far away from the airport, but I'm still on the flight path, so I still see the planes approaching Sydney every day. And I must say, airports, we all know airports are highly desirable areas. Once you put an airport in one place, that area will become a city. We all know it. When they built Lisbon Airport, that area was deserted. If you go there now, it's part of Lisbon City. So you'll see it. The same with Mascot in Sydney. The area was basically empty when Kingsford Smith Airport was built. You go there now and you have all those suburbs, Mascot, all those suburbs around it, Alexandria, etc., everywhere around the airport. It became part of Sydney metro area. It's a populated area, and if you go there, you know it. Sydney is now building a second airport in Badgerys Creek. At the moment, if you go to Badgerys Creek, you will see it's a low density area. There's nothing there. But once that airport is built, all the infrastructure will need to be built. We will need connections with trains, with buses, etc. And we also need people to work in those airports. So therefore, there will be small suburbs popping in near the airport. And in 10-20 years, we will have Badgerys Creek being a little city just as Mascot, just as Portela in Portugal. It's the same thing. Once you put an airport, you might build it in a desert. That if you put it there, it will become a high populated area because it's a highly desirable area. People want to live next to airports because there's jobs there. They want to work in the airport. There's all these workers that are needed. There's all this ground staff. There's all this airline staff. There's all these pilots, the crews, the check-in employees, the check-in people that do their job, the luggage handlers, all of these, the shops, the duty-free shops, all the shops that then appear and are created in these airports, they become cities themselves. You go to every airport and you will see it's like a city in itself. You have all the shops, you have all the infrastructure inside the airport. And obviously, to run something as massive as an airport, and it doesn't need to be a massive airport, for example, like Heathrow Airport, which is one of the biggest. Even a smaller airport, it's already a massive piece of infrastructure where you have all these people that are needed to work in those places. So if you need all these thousands of people to actually keep that airport running, you will need to create infrastructure and residential areas around that airport so people can live close to where they work. It's a given, it's gonna happen. So I think the best option is that we create a compromise and we see what's the best for us. And obviously, if we really want to live close to airport, we must expect a little bit of noise. And we must also take in consideration the changes that have been happening. Aviation is going towards a target zero, so less pollution. Planes have become less and less noisy, and that's a given. And since the 380, we have been seeing that happening with all other planes that have been released. So the direction that we are going to looks like it's a better one for everyone. So I think, yes, maybe aviation needs to compromise here and accept maybe a curfew, a redirection, something, obviously. But we as population also need to get a compromise. If we really want to go on holidays, if we really want to have a airport in our cities, we have to accept that a airport comes with a little bit of noise. I know this is a very controversial topic. I know this is a very controversial position for me to be in, but nonetheless, it's one that needs to be talked about and people need to address. I lived close to airports all my life, basically, and I must say that you learn how to live with the situation. I never felt that I was massively impacted by living next to Sydney Airport, which is by far bigger than, for example, Brisbane Airport, which is a smaller airport. I never felt really impacted. I lived for 30 years nearby in the flight path of Brisbane Airport, and I also never felt really impacted. And even though back in those days we had the really noisy planes in the air, we really had the noisy planes, and they really packed a punch, but I never really felt really affected. And Brisbane Airport, I believe, has a curfew as well. So it's all about a compromise. It's all about understanding situations. And really, I'm not saying that we should put money ahead of people. No, not at all. I don't defend that opinion at all. But I think it's a question of compromising and see what's best for all. And we all need airports. We all want airports. And airports also want passengers and they want people. So if we all try to understand both sides and we come to a more holistic approach on this, I think we may have a solution. Certainly aviation is doing their job. They're trying to reduce the noise with better planes. Certainly they're trying to reduce emissions and the pollution by getting more fuel efficient planes. SAF is a reality. Soon their studies are ready and maybe we'll have planes on hydrogen as well. So things are going to a better place. Let's just keep a little push and we may have a better future. And that's all for today. I hope you really liked this input on noise and airport noise. This was a little bit longer video than usual, but I hope you like the issue. But if you have an opinion, if you live close to an airport like I did all my life, and you have a different opinion, or you want to complement mine, please leave a comment below. Let's talk about this. I think that's important when we share ideas and we share views. You know, I already said this is our last video for October, so there will be another 2-week break on this new model up to the end of the year. So there will be a 2-week break, and I'll be back in 2 weeks. You know, put a like on the video and subscribe the channel with a little click on the bell so you get a notification of a new gadget report every week or fortnight. Before I go, I would like to thank you all for watching. See you in 2 weeks. Have a good break. Bye.